Now, we all know the Prime Minister is proven to be, what did I used to call him, each way Albo. That's a polite way of saying that we all know he doesn't tell the truth. We certainly know that when he does make many promises, fingers crossed, behind my back, didn't see it. Oh, OK, where's the fine print? But of course, he tells us his word is his bond.
My word is my bond.
Well, we know that's garbage because despite the fact that however many times they told us no changes to the tax policy that you voted for in 2019, that you voted for in 2022, we're now the government, we've got the media on side, so we'll just break the promise anyway. And as we've told you how many times? The tax cuts in the end work out for the lowest income workers to be $15 a week. Too little, too late. All about saving his political backside. And according to the media, that has now worked. Wait till people actually realise how little the tax cut turns out to be. Remember, anywhere between $15 and maybe $40 a week. That's the best case scenario. Yet if you're paying off a house, you're having to find anywhere between $20,000 and $40,000 extra a year to pay off your house. Well, as you know, the Prime Minister is in Western Australia because one of the areas that will be heavily affected by his decisions when it comes to tax, that will have very strong opinions about what cars they're allowed to buy, is, of course, the great state of Western Australia. Now, there's always this game that goes on each and every year where the Western Australian government says to the federal government, don't take away our GST money, and the local media feeds into it. Perfect example is front page of the West Australian newspaper today, which is, Prime Minister, take the GST vow, you're in Western Australia, you're campaigning in Western Australia, please sign this piece of paper to promise that you will not change the GST. Well, guess what? He's not changing the GST, or at least that's his promise. And as you may have heard by now, the way he decided to make this promise official wasn't to sign the newspaper, but to sign the arm of the newspaper reporter who was representing the West Australian. Now, as Peter Credlin pointed out a bit earlier this evening, little fact for those that want to know, the newspaper reporter, just until last year, was, you guessed it, a Labor Party staffer. So he was, and, well, you can see here, a man known to the Prime Minister, at least he was taking selfies with him. He's the one in the blue shirt. Patrick Gorman was the bloke that he worked for. He farewells the now reporter, independent reporter, of course. He's a friend, a terrific staffer and a leader. We have travelled the country advocating for Perth and more recently the Albanese government. So Dylan is now advocating for the Albanese government, but from inside the press corps. Photo after photo after photo. Thank you so much to Patrick Gorman for leaving this up on your Twitter feed. We do appreciate it. And don't you love the absurdity here where the Prime Minister's trying to tell us the other day, oh, I didn't know about the boat arriving in Western Australia because my phone doesn't work while I'm driving. But I just so happened to have a texter here to sign the arm of a former Labor staffer who works for the very paper who is asking me to sign it for you. This is how stupid they think you are. But Prime Minister, if you are signing pledges that you have made, can I suggest one? In fact, I've written it down for you here, which is $275 off power bills. You can sign just there, OK? If you'd like to. So anyone, Prime Minister, if you'd like to sign somebody, would you like to repeat this promise? You know, how like you did during the election, but you haven't said any day after it?
$275, $275, $275, $275, $275, $275, $275, $275.
Maybe on my other arm I could write that a Labor government will lower the cost of living. Would you sign anyone's arm who had that written? That was a promise you made. But then, of course, petrol. Well, you increased tax on petrol, didn't you? And then when it comes to alcohol, you increased tax on alcohol as well, where, 60% of a bottle of rum is now taxation? You're promising to keep cost of living low, but where are interest rates right now? Oh, that's right. They've gone up 13 times since you became the Prime Minister, to the highest rates in a generation. And look, if anyone else would like to write some promises down on their arm that the Prime Minister can sign, well, here's one for you.
More transparency and accountability. And that's the basis of what we will take forward.
Yes, but how does transparency actually look under this government? Sorry, no texters in sight here. You see, they charge people money, if you want to have a look at the Prime Minister's diary, and even then, big parts of it are blacked out. There's thousands, literally thousands, of questions that they haven't answered despite saying, we'll get back to you in the Senate. Now, Prime Minister, maybe you want to sign someone's leg because we're kind of running out of skin here, but still, what's another promise that you could sign for us?
I will lead a government that rewards people's hard work and repays their trust.
And when it comes to trust, because we can trust you to always do the right thing, would you sign anyone who expected you to bring trust back when, of course, Katie Gallagher, one of the mean girls, lied to the Senate, which I'm pretty sure is a sackable offence that undermines people's trust in the system? Oh, yeah, and speaking of Katie Gallagher, what was her promise when it came to jobs for the boys, jobs for mates, where the Labor Party would just push qualified people out of the way to give fellow Labor Party people a job?
Ensure that people actually get appointed for what they know, not who they know, which is a bit of a change from the last 10 years. This is really to end the culture of jobs for mates.
Yeah, but then, of course, you wouldn't be willing to sign that one, would you? Because Don Farrell, the Trade Minister, who sits in the very same chamber that Katie Gallagher does, delivering the promise of Anthony Albanese's, well, he decided to give a trade job in the United States not to the woman who was qualified, but to a former Labor senator who was a mate of his. The very definition of what supposedly they weren't going to do. So we saw today about just how dumb the Labor Party think that you are, but sadly at times just how dumb people are in the Australian media. Rather than to say, Prime Minister did a stunt today with a person who has advocated for his government as a former staffer. No, they just run the stunt. As opposed to even turning around and saying later that it was a Labor staffer, it's all ignored. Because you see, when you've got a history on the left, you can sort of bounce between politics and objective reporting on politics. If you're on the right, well, of course, you have no place in the conversation. You're just only in the evil world of opinion. But I repeat, Prime Minister, if you are signing people's bodies, $275 for power bills, all right? I won't get it inked, but just in case you want to pop past and show us how serious you are. But I think by the time I've had that many showers, we both know it's not going to be there by the time 2025 comes around, and you'll break that promise, just like you break so many others.